What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Carl's Bait and Tackle Tips and Tricks video. I'm Matt from SBFishingTV, and today we're going to go over a few different techniques that you can use in the winter, which are going to be similar to your spring, summer, and fall techniques, which are going to catch you more fish. So as a lot of you guys know, I'm a huge jig fisherman. I love fishing on the bottom. So Texas rigs and jigs are my go-to and my favorite style of catching bass. So when it comes to fishing in the winter, while you can still catch a ton of fish on Texas rigs and jigs, sometimes you're gonna have to downsize that even more. So today we're gonna go over a few different techniques and tricks you can use to catch more fish in the winter while still sticking to that style of fishing that you like. So we're going to take a look at some of the baits that we're going to be using today, and this isn't just going to be for Texas rigs or jigs. We're going to also go over techniques like spinnerbaits and crankbaits, if you like throwing those spring, summer, and fall, that you can use in the winter to catch you more fish. Well, you guys can see we have a bunch of different plastics here, and these are the baits we're going to be looking at. First, out of these two swim baits, we have the Kitech. This is a 3-inch swing impact Kitech, one of my favorite swim baits to throw. This is a boot tail styled swim bait, and it has a very apparent tail action to it. Half of this swim bait's body kicks from that boot tail, and it just looks so good. It's a perfect finesse swim bait to throw around. It's one of my favorites. Next up, we have Arsenal Fishing's Tactical Minnow, and this one's really similar to that Kitech, but it has a lighter tail wobble to it, so the kick from this is really just coming from that paddle tail. Most of the body stays pretty straight, so this is a really nice finesse styled minnow. We're going to be throwing this around on an underspin or an Alabama rig, just like the Swing Impact from Kitech. Where these two baits come into play, say you like fishing a crankbait or a spinnerbait. Two really great things that you can fish a swim bait on are going to be an underspin or an Alabama rig in the winter. Now, those are two of my favorite things to throw, and you can also throw them on just a bare jig head, something like, you know, an 1/8 ounce or a 1/4 ounce, and that's going to be similar to spinnerbait or crankbait fishing. You're just keeping it on the bottom, constantly reeling, you're moving water a lot, and that goes hand in hand with the Alabama rig. So if you like moving water, you like throwing crankbaits, spinnerbaits, definitely throw these on an Alabama rig or a jig head or an underspin. Constantly cover water. You're going to be fishing it a little bit slower than you would in the spring, summer, and fall, but it's still a constantly moving bait, something that you're moving water with, and some of my favorite ways to catch fish in the winter. Next up, we have 3 different plastics, first being the Googan Baits Drag and Drop, and this is going to be thrown on a drop shot. So if you like throwing a shaky head or a Texas rig, definitely throw this bait around on a drop shot. It's a 4.5-inch half shell styled drop shot bait that just works and looks amazing in the water. It's been one of my top baits that I've been throwing around lately, to be honest with you, on a drop shot. Now our next 2 baits you can use in a couple different ways, one of which I've actually almost never thrown, which is a tube. This is Carl's Amazing Baits snack tube, and you can throw like a 1/4 ounce jig head up in here, which is going to cover your jig or Texas rig style, and these work particularly well in the winter. They look just like a dying bluegill or a crawfish down on the bottom, and if I can find myself in an area with current, I'm going to throw it up into the current and just work it down the current along the bottom with any wood, rocks, grass that I can find in the wintertime. So we'll get more into fishing that, but next up and last but not least, we have Catchco's Tickler Worm. So this I'm going to be fishing on a Ned rig, and this is going to go similarly with the snack tube. If you like fishing a Texas rig or a jig, this is just a downsized version of that. You're going to fish it almost identically to a Texas rig, just a little bit slower and a lot more dragging. But we're going to rig these baits up quickly. We're going to go catch some fish. So we're going to take this tickler worm and rig this up on a Ned head. This is a 1/5 ounce Ned rig head, which could be a little bit heavy. I'm fishing in shallower water today. This is a warm water outflow, so you really want to take into consideration how heavy of a weight you're fishing depending on the depth of the water. I could go with something lighter, 1/8 ounce, 1/16 ounce, but this is what we're going to start with, and we'll downsize accordingly. Now, with the other baits I'm going to be throwing, I have the snack tube rigged up on a 1/4 ounce jig head, as you can see here, and all you have to do with this is just slide the jig head up into the tube, cut a little hole in the plastic there, and that line tie is going to pop right out, and then you leave the hook exposed through the bottom. As far as the swim baits, we're going to throw both of those on an Alabama rig and an underspin. We'll take one of them and throw it on a jig head as well. We're gonna take the drag and drop, and we're gonna throw that on a drop shot. I'm gonna start off with throwing the Ned rig with the tickler worm. So I'm throwing the Ned rig on a 7-foot medium light, 20-pound braid to a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. Usually I'll go 8 to 10 pound, but since this water's so clean, I think that the 6-pound test might give me a little bit of an advantage. So as I was saying before, this bait is really similar to a Texas rig in the sense of the way you're fishing it. It's a bottom bait. You want to keep this thing on the bottom, and you're actually just doing a lot of dragging with it. Since the Ned head is more of a flat bottom jig head, it's going to stand the tickler worm straight up and down. So you cast it out, let it sink to the bottom, and then you're just slowly dragging it across the bottom. It looks like a little minnow or small bait fish just eating off the bottom. So I'm just giving it really slow drags like that, letting it sit in between drags. So I picked up this tube. I'm gonna try just hopping this around some of these pilings. I have this on a 7-foot medium heavy, 15-pound fluorocarbon, and I'm fishing this just like a jig. I'm gonna hop it maybe a little bit more, and since the tide is coming out right now, we have a current coming down, and I'm just kind of keeping up with the line as it slowly drags that bait across the bottom, feeling for any bites and hopping it off and over any sort of cover. All right, well, obviously you guys know that a drop shot is not a power fishing technique. This is gonna be more like fishing a jig or a Texas rig. And it works really well in the winter because you can fish it really slow, keep it off the bottom a little bit, and that's why I think the drop shot's working right now. These fish aren't eating off the bottom. I threw the Ned rig around quite a bit, didn't even get a fish to look at it, and as soon as I put the drop shot on, maybe 2 or 3 minutes later, I caught that first fish. And I think it's because it's keeping the bait off the bottom, and I have a longer leader than I usually throw between the weight and the hook. It's about a foot, maybe a little bit more. And all I'm doing is slowly dragging it along the bottom and then reeling down till I feel the weight, and then shaking the line, basically, just moving that bait up and down. I also threw that tube around here. I made 2 full laps. Didn't get a single bite. I threw the swim bait around. I put the swim bait on the Ned head. Just try to get real finesse with it. They didn't eat anything until this drop shot. There we go. Oh, there's another one chasing it. It's a solid fish. On the drag and drop. First fish of the day. There we go. Chunky guy. Look at this fish's spots. Beautiful. I love when they have those black spots on them like that. But this fish came on the drag and drop on a drop shot. And I've thrown a little bit of everything, and that's really the only thing that I've been able to get them to eat. So we're gonna throw that around a little bit more, see if we can't catch some more fish. So I'm throwing my drop shot on the exact same setup as my Ned rig with the tickler worm. 7-foot medium light, 20-pound braid, 6-pound fluorocarbon. I'm using an 1/8 ounce weight right now, and that's because I'm fishing in like 6-7 feet of water around these bridge pilings. If I was fishing deeper, I'd go up to a 1/4 ounce, but I generally don't fish much heavier than a 1/4 ounce weight with a drop shot. I have it nose hooked right now on a size 2 drop shot hook. You can see that there. Palomar knot with the line going back through the hook so it stands straight out. And like I was saying earlier, this leader is a little bit longer than I normally throw it. The reason I have it like this is because the fish seem to be higher up in the water column. They don't want to eat off the bottom. But the great thing about the drop shot is it is just like fishing a shaky head or a really light Texas rig. So if you like doing that in the spring, summer, or fall, in the winter time, try switching to the drop shot. All right, so we're gonna take this 3-inch Kitech and throw it on a Cool Baits underspin. And I actually took the blade off of the underspin just to give it more of a finesse presentation. But there you go, really small, as you guys can see. Really small. I should be throwing this on a spinning rod, but I have it on a 6/8 medium heavy. And I'm just gonna get up really shallow up against these rocks, see if there's anything that's hungry and wants to eat. I'm also gonna turn out and fish some of those pilings as well. Now I'm fishing this really slow, almost like, imagine fishing a crankbait or a spinnerbait in this situation. Alright guys, that's going to be it for me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video on fishing similar baits to spring, summer, and fall techniques in the winter. Now remember, I personally think one of the biggest things and most important things to do is downsize. So if you like fishing a certain style, try implementing it in the winter just at a smaller size. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button on Carl's YouTube channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.